It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
Hello, NerdyVerse.
Oh,
Welcome
God.
to Nerd Herder.
This is a very bad.
Blah blah.
Please, dear God, make it stop.
Hi.
Good evening.
I am Big Dracula,
I am little Dracula.
and we
I'm so small.
welcome to the spooky times of NerdyVerse.
Welcome to whatever this is.
Welcome to this episode where Boba is trying to attack the microphone.
He's cute
It's
though.
it's happening, and where we talk about the scariest thing happening. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you
Yeah.
the scariest thing happening is that we've been allowed to continue podcasting.
Right? I mean, it's been 3 years so far. We're still going. No one
Right.
stopped us yet.
So, but no, controlled spooks happening here. Nothing too
Controlled
crazy.
spooks.
Um,
I'm sorry, sir. This is a class 1 controlled spook.
yes, it is
Gonna
a
need a
class one.
prescription?
We have a classic
Yes, we
spook
do.
to discuss as much as we can in this episode.
Yeah.
We needed some time to work on our 100th episode of Nerd Herder, the main show, the one where we talk about Star Wars and all that good stuff. This is NerdyVerse, where we talk about everything else. And so, sorry if you walked into the wrong show, but glad you're here. Sit down and let's talk about a German bloodsucker. Yeah,
He's
Romanian, right?
Transylvania.
Transylvanian.
Carpathian.
Yes.
Most times, yes, played by either a German or British actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played by a lot of people.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Dracula has been around for so long at this point,
Yeah.
almost going on, at least as far as the films, 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you're bound to get a lot of people playing the same character over and over. And everybody thinks
over
the
and
next
over
one is the
again.
next big one. And sometimes it just looks like a rat-faced dude.
Hey,
So,
but to be honest, we all have our favorites, which we'll get to later in the episode.
sure.
But I think everybody has the one that they think is the iconic Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think of Bela Lugosi, for one, definitely. I think a lot of people really think of Christopher Lee as well. But we'll get there, won't we?
Mm-hmm. We will, apparently.
We will. First things first, John, I want to tell you a story that is one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. Personally, I heard the story first on Lore, the podcast by Aaron Mahnke. He is a very talented storyteller. But I want to tell you the
Very
story.
cool podcast, too.
Oh, yeah.
Highly recommend it. Or the book, if you're a reader
Oh, yeah. You mean
of that.
the book that I have in my lap?
It's one of those that it's not really a podcast, except in the sense that a dude records something and puts it on the internet. It's much more in line with an audiobook,
Yeah,
which is why it just became a book eventually.
I listened to it to fall asleep.
You can also catch it on Amazon
Yes,
Prime,
a very
I think.
good show.
Mm-hmm.
The only show that I've ever had to stop because it freaked me out, specifically the lobotomy episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, that is one of my sources for this episode is the World of Lore, Monstrous
So if we're
Creatures.
wrong, blame them.
No. It's one of the many that I used. But I want to tell you the story of the Brown family, if I could.
Okay.
If you will allow me.
All right.
We're going all the way back to the beginning
Oh, okay.
of
Take me
lore.
on a journey.
This story is going to take place mostly in 1892. That's where our story begins.
Okay.
Actually, it's going to start in 1882 with the death of the matriarch of the Brown family, Mary Brown.
Mm-hmm.
George and Mary Brown were a family that lived in Exeter, Rhode Island. This is all the way back when, New York was rolling plains and not giant buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So the Brown family in Exeter, Rhode Island, first was the death of Mary, the mother, and then she died of consumption, which we now know is tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's called consumption is because it literally looks like your body is eating itself alive. You
Mhm.
become deathly pale. You lose a ton of weight. You have dark circles around your eyes. Does any of this start sound familiar to you? A
Blah,
li-
blah,
blah, blah, blah.
blah.
Yeah. So yeah, Mary Brown died of consumption, and then right after her, the Brown's daughter Mary died of consumption. Yes.
2 Marys?
2 Marys.
Okay.
2 Marys.
Say
and
2 Hail Marys and they'll be fine.
yikes. And then 10 years later, in 1892, their daughter Mercy died. Mercy Brown.
Have mercy. I'm just
Yes.
kidding.
Mercy Brown died in January of 1892. And then, since the ground was so hard, they could not put her in the ground yet. So they put her in a crypt until, the ground softened for her to be buried.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this is very important to the story.
Okay.
There's 10
I
years
trust you.
between the burials. So Mercy Brown dies. George is left with his final child, Edwin.
Mm-hmm.
Edwin Brown gets sick in 1892, a few months after Mercy Brown. Well, when your last child is sick, it's easy to think, I'm willing to do anything to help this kid.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, George started having nightmares. He started having nightmares that his daughter Mercy was walking through the house, standing at the edge of Edwin's bed and looking down on him. Edwin was also crying out for mercy because, I guess, favorite
Have
sister.
mercy.
Exactly. So George did the most, reasonable thing he
And
could
took
think
his
of.
child to therapy.
Well, that would be the better option.
Right? Did they even believe in therapy at this point?
No, they believed in witchcraft.
Okay. Well, close enough.
Rhode Island at this point was made up of mostly German immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of superstition baked into the people, German and Irish immigrants, which a lot of the rural South as well is made up of German and Irish immigrants. My family, for one.
Absolutely. That's the original rednecks.
Exactly. So he did the most, reasonable thing that he could think of. He went to the rest of the town in a town hall, and he told them about what was going on with his family. He told them about the dreams. He told them about Edwin.
Mm-hmm.
He told them about the phantom of of Mercy that seemed to be haunting them. And the town, they got together and they cooked up an idea. Can you guess what that idea was?
Exorcism.
Close.
Reverse exorcism.
Intercism.
Intercism.
Yes, I like that idea. Well,
let's
they
write a
thought-
book about it.
Yeah, actually.
Ah.
They came up with the idea of, well, you know what? We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to dig up the bodies of your family and we're going to see what's happening. Because they believed that Mercy, the reason that she was visiting them, was because she was a revenant. Do you know what a revenant is off the top of your head?
It is a tank in Halo 4, I think it was introduced. Or maybe it's Halo Reach. It was around that era.
It looks
It's
like
kind
a
of
Puma
rubyish.
to me.
That would be a warthog.
I
Not
know,
even the
but
right
it's a joke.
side. No, it's like a Juon, right? It's like I died in anger and now I just live out of spite as a spirit.
Kind of. You're absolutely right with the spite part of that. They believed that Mercy had died in such a horrible way that she had come back specifically for Edwin,
Because that was like
so that she could feed off of his life.
the lore back in the day. Like they weren't just ghosts; they were like different classes of ghosts, depending on how people died, right? Or stuff like, or like murdered people became a different kind of ghost than just say like an old person with regrets or stuff like that.
Well, like that's the point of a revenant is they are called in Latin. The Latin translation is to come back, or
Gotcha.
if you're a Norwegian person, I guess a Slavic person.
I am not.
No, you're not. You're Irish. They would be called a Dragor, which
That sounds way cooler.
they become popular in the fantastic game of Skyrim, which is a translation of again walkers. So what makes revenants and Dragor important here is they come back for a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They come back to feed off the life force of a living person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the townspeople were sure was happening here.
Mm.
They knew for a fact that Mercy was walking at night coming into Edwin's bedroom and feeding off his life force and making him die quicker.
Hmm.
He just had tuberculosis. That's what we're getting to here.
Yeah.
She was not a vampire. They knew the word because vampires have existed for as long as humanity has come up with stories. Just has different names and different spellings of names. So what they did, again, we're talking real logical, reasonable people. First, they dug up the grave of the Marys. Uh, they dug up Mary Senior, Mary
That's
Junior.
not how you get it in with Jesus.
It is really not. And they found them to be, satisfactorily decomposed.
They did.
They did. They did. Like, they bones.
They're in there, so yeah, they're
Yeah.
fine. They're
Well,
satisfied.
and they were buried 10 years ago is big thing here. Whereas when they got to Mercy's body, which had been put in the ground maybe a few months ago, they dug her up. She looked almost pristine because
It's
she
cold. It's cold
exactly
outside.
she had
She was
been in
preserved.
a crypt for
Mm.
months and months and months. But this was before CSI. This was before we knew about decomposition and
Well,
preservation and stuff
yeah,
like
and
that.
one and two, you don't typically dig up the dead people, so I can understand them
Not
being like,
usually.
"Whoa, what the heck?" Because I mean, like, yeah, you might have accidental recovery of dead body,
Accidental recovery, yes.
flooding, in any number of reasons why you might see a dead body that was previously buried, and you're like, "Oh, that looks like a dead body,"
Yeah.
versus a mausoleum situation where you have to remove the body, or you have to excavate to kind of get there, and so it's just like I can understand the holy cow, this is weird
Yeah.
a little bit more, but
And like I said, these are superstitious people.
and that's why I can also understand them losing their minds over it.
Yep. And so with the confirmation supposedly that Mercy Brown was a vampire or a revenant or, a night walker or whatever,
A
they
lady of the
a
night.
lady of the evening, Lucy Harker. We'll get there. They did the even more reasonable, logical solution. They cut out her heart and they cut out her liver. They took them over to a slab of stone that was a few feet away. They burned them to a crisp. They gathered the ashes and they mixed it with alcohol and water. And then, I know, they went back to Edwin and gave him the tonic to cure
And
his
said drink it,
vampirism.
and said, did they say drink it?
Yep,
Gotcha.
he
Yeah, they
drank
used
it.
to do that with all kinds of stuff where it was this weird. It was almost like how they used to believe like bloodletting, like, oh, you've got bad in your body, so bleed.
Mhm.
That'll get it out. That'll drain the evil.
Yep.
And the same thing of just like, oh, this thing, yeah, let's turn it into a seltzer water, and that'll solve the problem. And
This
it's
is
just
medieval
like,
LaCroix,
okay,
folks.
right? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they made a tonic for Edwin to drink because the heart and the liver are supposedly the sources of life at this time.
I get it. Heartbeat, like that's the most vital organ, I guess, and
Yeah,
the liver.
they both have the most blood.
Well, without a liver, you are
You were
pretty
screwed.
screwed. Yeah, because like we eat and drink all kinds of things that thank God for our liver as a organic filter. Because goodness gracious, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I get that. I get that.
Edwin Brown died maybe a few months later.
I-
So they
Is
did
it a
not.
coincidence? You decide.
You decide. Blah blah blah. What I have just told you is the story of the first American vampire, Mercy Brown.
I
Um,
like the werewolf better.
I know. I know. American Werewolf in London is one of the best movies ever made.
Pretty dang good.
It's
Yep.
so good. Some of the best
Well,
transformation scenes.
yeah, special effects on the forward on that. I like stuff like this where
Yeah.
like real life horror stories, because so many times they're so literary, they're so theatrical. Um,
This was just a townspeople going crazy.
yeah, like I mean, stories all come from somewhere, and so it's really interesting to uh look up. I mean, and same thing like there's been people in history considered as vampires simply because
Mm-hmm.
of some medical disorder.
Oh, darling.
In the early days of transfusions and everything, where it's just like, oh, surely that is inhuman. That's unholy, and it's just like, no, it's just different.
Yeah.
Um, and then sometimes there are screwed up situations like this one.
Oh yeah, and it would be, irresponsible of me not to mention that 100 years before this happened, there was another case of American vampirism. Sarah Tillinghast, she was a supposed vampire as well. The difference between this story and her story is that on a few years later, the story of Mercy Brown was publicized in a newspaper called the New York World. We know this because this specific article was found among the notes and papers of a London theater company manager, Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, based partially at least on this story.
And this is the 1800s.
This is 1897.
That's not as early as I thought.
Nope.
Interesting.
It's so easy to forget
Well,
how close this is.
anything like more than like 50 years out starts to bleed together so much. Like it gets so
Yeah.
muddy with what happened when, or maybe it's just me where it's just, yeah, like it after a certain point it seems like it's all just far off, and it's weird. I don't know. It being Dracula's been such a piece of media for so long. I just imagined it was much, much longer than that.
Oh yeah, and it's so ingrained in our culture as well. Like we
Yeah,
are horror fans. We've seen the story of Dracula so many times.
sure. And even if not that, then you've seen vampire stuff.
Yeah.
So, are arguably the king of vampires, but not the only one, but definitely what created the fan favorite genre. For
Oh yeah,
sure.
definitely. I just for fun, really quick, I went through and looked up some different cultures' stories about vampires,
Mhm.
or life-sucking individuals.
Chupacabra.
No,
No,
no.
it's
That's
literally called the goat sucker.
Yeah. They
That's
suck
not like
goats, not blood.
they suck the blood of goats,
Yeah.
which is probably more like delicious than human blood.
There is also
Again, we eat so many McGriddles.
Right?
Like it's
So many.
we are so tainted. I feel bad for a modern day Dracula.
We are not healthy in the
No,
slightest.
we are not good for you.
Eat
Go vegan.
vegans. I like how you went go vegan and I went eat vegan.
Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. So
Okay. Yes.
like I said, Western Europe, they had the revenants to come back to life.
Spiritual vampires.
In Norse mythology, they had the Draugr, again walkers. In Greek mythology, there was the daughter of Hecate, or Hecate. I'll have which people tell me which is right. In
Hatake. I don't know.
Hecate. I'm gonna say Hecate.
H dog.
Her daughter Impusa. I know.
Mama say, mama sa, mama umpusa.
Well, Impusa's thing was that she would walk at night and she would drink the blood of young virgins and eat their flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what you do when in Greece.
Right. When in Greece.
In Africa, they have the Ramanga. I think Ramanga. It's if it's not pronounced how it's spelled, I don't know. Where they would drink the blood and eat the nail clippings of innocent victims.
That's an odd one.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the time when you clip your nails, you throw it directly in the trash. So that a
Is that what
Ramanga,
you're supposed to do?
You're supposed to.
Oh.
You're not supposed to throw your nails outside, or else it could attract a Ramanga.
Okay.
I know.
I think that's just one of those things like, hey, clean up your toys or Kamakucha is gonna come after you, and it's just
it's
like
the Chupa Chupa. He's gonna suck your
right.
toys.
It's just like a scary story to get people to like be hygienic.
Yeah, it's a scary story for
scary stories to tell your children, and to keep their toe clippings clean.
Yes. I was disappointed to find that Japan doesn't really have any, natural vampire myth.
Mm-hmm.
There are yokai who do suck blood.
I was gonna
life
say,
force.
yeah, I knew about that, but I guess, well, but if a chupacabra is like vampire adjacent, I feel like that's vampire adjacent too.
Yeah. There's
So
so many. There's so many.
that's some of the stuff with like mythology where there's so many overlaps in certain cryptids and creatures and whatnot that it's kind of just like I mean everything's technically something else, you know.
Everything is something else. Tell your kids about it.
You know, it's like there's not too many very unique uh mythological cryptid creatures.
No, there's not. Everything is a copy of a copy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or a reinterpretation or just a mistranslation, all kinds of junk.
Yeah.
So
The last one is from China. I really want to pronounce this right, but I'm not going to. The Jiangxi,
mm-hmm.
which translates into stiff corpse. Have you ever seen? There's a few interpretations of it, but there are in a couple of video games. There's corpses with their arms straight out that hop after you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a clip of a
Mm-mm.
movie that's done that?
Mm-mm.
Well, those are Jiangxi. Those are
Interesting.
Chinese vampires. They suck the key
They suck.
of a person.
Yeah, the life force.
Yeah, the life force. So that's
So
the
you
whole
you
thing.
either have the spiritual life force or the physical life force, aka blood. But
Exactly.
either way, it drains life. Is the minimum requirement? Is what I'm gathering.
Yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
And there are several different ways to kill a vampire. I'm
Steak. Take them out to a nice
I'm
steak
just gonna
dinner.
do some air quotes here.
Right.
Um, one of them was to remove the hearts and the livers, to grind them up and burn them, feed the ashes to the victims, let them die a few hours later because they're dying of tuberculosis. And, vampire don't make a good vaccine.
Right.
Another way was prone burial. Have you ever seen a prone burial before?
No. Are you buried prone?
Well, you're buried with your head on the bottom of the coffin. A lot of the time,
So upside down?
yeah, you're buried upside down.
Okay.
It's like how the old joke about how you bury lawyers.
How like in
So
the
you
ground?
well, you bury them upside down so that you can park your bike somewhere.
Where did you get what is that?
I don't
Who
know.
says this?
My uncles.
Are they vampires? Because that's just not normal.
But yeah, there have been hundreds of thousands of prone burial sites found all over the
You're just
world.
revert like buried upside down,
Basically,
kind
you're
of.
buried on your tummy, not on
Is
your
that
back.
supposed to be like unholy? Like that's
Yeah.
how you bury unholy things?
Yep. You can't
Interesting.
crawl out. I know.
I think you could.
I know.
Uma Thurman could for sure.
Definitely. She with the strength of her butt alone could get her out of some sticky situations. I'm just imagining her 1-inch punching with a butt cheek.
Just,
And it's very funny.
just 3, 2, 1, clinch.
Another way is, like you said, steak.
Steak. A
steak,
well-seasoned steak.
specifically a steak of holly, because holly is a holy
Holly is
plant.
the nicest cow.
Okay, I love you so much.
Is the holy plant?
It's a holy plant.
Okay,
It's
there's more
used-
than one.
Yeah, holly is used in a
Catholics.
lot of sacrifices.
I would think like the grapevine because that's the one Jesus talked about. If anything,
You think
there's
Catholics listen to Jesus?
spoiler alert. There's no such thing as a holy plant.
I'm
I'm just saying. What?
You're gonna get the Catholics in a tizzy.
I'm
All right.
I'm just saying. Of all the
I getcha.
things, of all the holy things, plants are very low on the list. Let me put it that way.
I forget the entire reason. You can come for me in the comments. But the idea behind the stake is nailing them literally into their grave. They can't
Really?
get out. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, if you can't kill it, just make sure it can't get up.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Fun fact: you can visit Mercy Brown's grave.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, I guess I kind of imagine so, but then I also feel foolish because of how many times people just like remodel on top of like old grave sites.
Yeah. In Exeter, there is a very prominent cemetery that has not only Mercy Brown's grave, but supposedly the stone that they burned her heart on, as well as the crypt that she was kept in.
Interesting.
Yeah. I learned about that in Atlas Obscura.
Nice.
Yeah. You can also visit Sarah Tillinghass's grave, but that one's not confirmed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Another way to kill a vampire comes from the book Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
which is you feed them Holy Communion.
That's
Yeah,
not suspicious at all.
not suspicious. Well, one of
Hey,
the
hey, Dracula, you want some crackers
you want
and,
some
grape
crackers?
juice? This seems very odd. Is this American custom?
What? What? Why you want bread?
This is not meal. What am I, cat?
Do your cat eat bread?
Oh gosh, holy crackers!
Oh my God, Cheez-Its.
I would just love to see someone trick a vampire into communion.
It would be funny.
I feel like that's just. I feel like all communion is coerced.
I mean,
Hi. You might be wondering why I've all called you here. I've just fed you all my body and blood.
hey, guess what? Cannibalism.
Yeah, do this for the next few thousand years, and maybe I'll come back and explain why.
Maybe. But yeah, a lot of the time to
I
repel vampires, they will crush up Holy Communion, put them around the person that they're trying to protect, and garnish them
I
in
feel
garlic
like that's
flowers.
not how communion works.
It's not
And I just want to point out, I make fun of religious practices, but not
because
the
we are
religion
religious.
itself.
Yeah.
I think church things are silly and funny. I don't mind traditions. It's just funny when, like, for instance, when communion is given so much, it's crackers and grape juice, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's not supernatural.
Yeah. I mean, I
The only thing
acknowledge.
supernatural is that we continue to do this stuff.
Yeah, I wear a rosary because fashion, not because
It's because it's cool.
it's cool. It's cool as
It's a
heck.
neat little thing. And same thing, even if you have like, and I'm a big fan of grounding. I'm a big fan of like the power of stuff
Mhm.
in moments, you know. I use things to distract myself when I'm like just spiraling in anxiety and everything. I get that. And that's kind of what rosaries are, is it's
Mhm.
this physical grounding when you're going through prayers and all, or it's just this thing. And it can be special, but it's not special because the priest said so. It's just special if you make it special. Like it's
Yeah.
you know, it's either an inhaler or battery acid. You decide.
Aw, yeah. Good reference, baby.
Gazebos.
Oh, it's gazebos.
So
But yeah, that's how you kill a vampire.
I'm liking all this history. I'm liking the actual education happening on this
Thank
show.
you.
That's very cool.
Listen,
That's what happens when Boop's in charge.
exactly. I bought a book about
An
exorcisms
actual
recently,
episode.
so we'll see how that we'll see where that goes. It might be a fun one to do.
We have a few more, uh, at least one or two more spooky nerdy verses to
Yeah, we
do
do.
later. Like I mentioned, we have our 100th Nerd Herder episode to do, so we've got to get that out.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we're trying to focus on things like
The
this that just
spookums.
coincide with the spooky season and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of back to history.
oh, okay.
What were you gonna say?
No, I just thought we were moving on to the fictional universe now.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay,
Yes,
sure.
definitely. So
Take
among
it away.
Bram Stoker's papers was not only, Mercy Brown's story, but also a record of the family line of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say it wrong, and I hate that. Vlad Dracula, son
Mhm.
of the dragon, because his
Blah, blah,
father was the
blah.
dragon. Exactly. He was the Count
That's
of
is that what
Carpathia.
Dracula means?
Yes,
Dragon?
kinda. It's a bastardization of Dragul.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. It's very interesting.
I
If
like that.
you go through all of his notes, you really see, a lot of ties to our past.
Yeah,
Because, not only was, Vlad the Impaler one of his notes, it also ties back to Elizabeth Báthory, who was the countess who bathed in the blood of her victims, supposedly.
yeah, like I mean, it's understandable you'd see such like real world connections. It's just it's definitely I mean, sometimes reality is just more interesting than fiction.
Hmm.
For sure.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say I might get stuff wrong in this episode, but you know what? I'm
We ain't
having fun.
experts.
I ain't no expert. You can correct me later. But
Or not. You're not an
yeah,
expert either.
exactly.
Step off.
Let me
you-
have fun.
You bumping grass bow? No, I'm just kidding. Let's have fun with vampires.
Exactly. So after, Bram Stoker writes his magnum opus, one of the best books ever written.
Bram Stoker's
in my
Dracula is the one they made into a movie with the boobs on the head, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Let me
right?
get there, please.
I'm just trying to remember. I knew one movie was like
Yes.
touted out as the most accurate
It's
Dracula because
not.
that's like such a I'm discovering that's such a like the same way it's just like,
It's
oh, is
so
it George
argued.
Lucas's Star Wars? It's like, well, how faithful is, Bela Lugosi's portrayal and all this other stuff.
And that's the thing is Bela Lugosi wasn't even the first.
Which is interesting too, just to consider how much inspired even Bram Stoker, how any one character or director could have been like, hey, I like this part especially of the lore.
Mhm.
Let's do that more. Um,
Yeah.
Dracula being such an amalgamation of real life characters, it's hard to at all be like which one's the most realistic or
Yeah.
faithful or whatever. So
Yeah.
okay, so Bram Stoker writes
Dracula,
Dracula.
which is a fantastic book. It's a classic. If you've never read it, I highly recommend. It can be a bit of a brick if
It's
you're not
old.
used to
It's old. Like
it's very old.
that's something you
Mhm.
kind of have to
You have to
contend
keep
with.
it in its context.
Yeah, like you lose the story if you update.
Mhm.
Like if you replace parts of Abraham Lincoln's axe, it's no longer his axe. If you
Mhm.
modernize parts of Dracula, I don't think it's Bram Stoker's Dracula anymore. So
Yeah. And it's written as an account through the journal of Jonathan Harker, one of the first victims
interesting.
of Dracula.
I like stories like that.
Yeah. It's very well written. It's written mostly from the perspective of Jonathan Harker, but it's
Can you tell I
also
haven't read it?
yes, we can, but it's okay. You're not a huge fan of vampire stories.
No, I'm not a big fan of classic movie monsters in general. I know it starts in books and everything, but
Mhm.
I like in general the typical classic creatures and villains of horror that we think of. I'm not a huge fan of. It's a Beatles situation where I don't like the music, but I respect the craft and
Yeah.
what they've done. Um, and now I will say I definitely have an appreciation for those older films than I do older films in general.
Mhm.
I'm just not a fan of up and coming early cinema. But I think something about horror kept this very uh, theatrical, and I mean like physical theater kind of style to it. It was very
Ah. Yes.
elevated, and it cast actors and characters like it was a theater that just happened to be filmed, and so something about it does win me over more than just
Yeah.
Casablanca or the likes. But even still, it's just one of those things where it's just like I can appreciate it, but it's fine over there.
Yeah.
I don't. It's not any of my favorites,
And that's
and that's
fair.
fine. Uh,
Whereas I grew up watching Turner Classic Movies with my mother.
mhm.
So I was introduced to the Universal monsters before any other horror in my life. So that's
That's
kind of
something
where
that
my love
spoiled me
came from.
too. I definitely it was reversed for me. I think because there wasn't any plan.
Mhm.
It was just, oh, I've watched these things and that makes me interested in this, but I missed the boat on these things because now I can't appreciate them comparatively.
Yeah, I was encouraged to watch the classics before anything else and read the classics before anything else. You know.
Sometimes it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's why I don't like Exorcist is because I'd seen so much worse before that. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is not scary
And
and
then The
therefore
Exorcist
not
came
very
along.
good to me.
The Exorcist 3. You watched
It
that.
got better, well, because it started doing new things. But
Yeah.
yeah, the original. I mean, it's the same with like after watching Halloween Kills, I watched Halloween, the original, and it's just like, man, you really can't compare.
Mm-mm.
Like it's just it's not anywhere near the same sort of film and everything. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so not quite my forte, but definitely still interesting
Oh yeah.
regardless.
And I'll say personally, one of the scarier adaptations for me is the first adaptation, which is the German expressionism film Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, referenced in SpongeBob, which was the first time I
Why is it
saw him.
Nosferatu and not Dracula though?
I forget.
Okay,
It's
fair
an
enough.
adaptation of the stage play, which was written by Bram Stoker, of course, because he's a stage performer, stage manager.
Hmm.
So they toured all around London and Germany with the stage play before everything else. In 1922, the uh, yep, German expressionism film Nosferatu came out. Directed by F.W. Murnau.
Cool. He's dead.
He's yeah, astute observation. And it was starring Max Schreck in heavy makeup, obviously.
This is one of those films. I think for me, it's just one of those like you appreciate it for cinema's sake, not necessarily for quality's sake,
Mhm.
because it's just one of those things where it's just like, look at how to make a good suspenseful movie.
Mhm.
Look at how to cast and direct a creature as your
Dude.
main character.
Okay. German expressionism film is the only thing that really genuinely unsettles me when it comes to horror. Because if you've ever seen The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, it's so mind-bendingly weird looking. It's completely silent except for the music that's playing in the background, and they do such a good job of, meeting those highs and lows of the story. That's why I think it's the scariest adaptation in my
You know
opinion,
the last movie that scared me?
which was
It was a David Lynch. It was Eraserhead.
really, you don't
Yeah,
like
that was the
Eraserhead?
last time I was scared of a movie, and that was probably 17 years ago.
Which part?
Just in general, I mean, the way you talk about unsettling film for you,
Mhm.
like that's what triggered that of just
Makes you
like,
uncomfortable.
when was the last time I've actually felt like I enjoy many a horror film,
Mhm.
but when's the last time I felt what they intended me to feel?
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, something about that is just unsettling to me,
that's fair.
especially the weird baby thing, and I like
The Lady in the
it.
Radiator
It's
scared me.
it's supposed to do that. I think, and I don't know if it was a David Lynch film, but there's also a Peter Weller film he stars in that's very similar, where it's like he's an exterminator or something, and
Oh, The
um,
Naked Lunch.
yes. Oh my gosh, that's another
Love
one
that movie. David
where
Cronenberg.
it's just like, ugh. And that's the thing. I love Cronenberg.
Mhm.
The Fly is probably one of my favorite horror remakes, horror films. I love that movie. It's probably my only favorite. What's his face? Love Finds a Way. Um,
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Like I
That's your
generally don't.
favorite Jeff Goldblum
I
movie.
generally don't like that man,
And
except in The World According to Jeff Goldblum. I like him when he's being him. I don't like him when he's being him as a character. It's a Nicolas Cage thing where it's like
wow.
this isn't a character. This is just you. You
I
got paid millions of dollars just to be you.
Since you mentioned him, I have to mention
Yes,
my
Vampire's
favorite
Kiss.
vampire movie,
No, you
which
cannot.
it is
You
my favorite vampire
cannot.
movie.
I
Okay.
will let you. I give it to you that it's your favorite Nicolas Cage, but you cannot tell
It is
me.
a vampire
You cannot
movie.
tell me that's your
There's
favorite.
vampires in that movie.
Yes, but that's better than any of. That's better than Blade Trinity.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing: is that favorite does not automatically mean the best.
I know you like
But
Super Mario Brothers, but
exactly.
I just thought you had some class.
I have a lot of class. Am I
Oh
getting
my
through to
gosh.
you, Alba?
It's at least a fun movie.
It is
I'll
so
give you
much
that.
fun to
But
watch.
oh my gosh, that
It's
is
my
a
favorite
choice.
vampire movie. My favorite
Um,
Dracula adaptation is Nosferatu the Vampire, directed by Werner Herzog.
this is the 78 or the
79.
remakey one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very
I
very
liked
good. It's
the
very
effects better
soft-spoken.
in that one, but man, you do a really good Herzog.
Thank you.
That's weird. Stop that. That's creepy.
I would like to see the baby.
um I didn't think about this. Because I knew ahead of time what I wanted to
Yeah.
say. I really like that Crypt Keeper movie that's got the vampires, the ladies.
Yeah. What's that movie called though?
I can look it up. I mean, I didn't like I literally just said I
Yeah.
didn't put too much thought into.
And you know what? I found out recently that you had never seen any of the original Dracula movies.
Nope.
Like you had never seen the
I've
Bela
only seen the
Lugosi.
Hammer.
Ah,
I've only
yes.
seen any of the classic stuff. I've really only seen
Universal
Hammer
horror.
films. Yeah.
Well, they're both they're both Hammer.
Yes, but they are a divided line.
Yes.
So like it was when they really did this big, like these were some of the original shared universes before the
Mhm.
MCU, before any of this stuff. There were Universal horror
Yep.
films
Yeah,
and Hammer
Dracula
films.
and horror.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I mean,
Dracula and
it
Frankenstein.
it was like what
Frankenstein's
Toho
monster.
did. It was like we'll have a giant monster movie over here, a giant movie monster over here, and then we'll put them together.
Exactly.
It was the same concept.
Because that's what
Um,
people wanted to see.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And so
Freddy versus Jason was not the first.
and with that though, you got very distinct. So again, Bela Lugosi being much more the universal horror face of Dracula, but then you kind of trade off to Christopher Lee for
Who
the
is
Hammer
also
films.
fantastic.
Very different Draculas, very different films. You go from the 30s to the 60s,
60s, I think.
60s. They span quite a while, but
Yeah. And you
um,
get, the addition of color into
yes,
these movies, which does so much for selling, this is a blood-sucking vampire. Don't get me wrong. Bela Lugosi,
Bordello of Blood.
there you go.
That's the movie. I just that's I love Crypt Keeper, and
Yeah,
there's
he's
that, and
great.
there's one other movie I just really enjoyed. This was like my first real like this is about vampires, and I enjoy this movie
Mhm,
kind of thing. You know?
that's fair. I I I think I kinda latched onto vampires as a cool movie monster creature, from a young age because, I was told to read Dracula.
hmm
And, I like vampires. They're cool looking.
I think for me, like I said, it's just I saw other things. So like my expectations of horror and horror monsters and everything just was very different. Um, and I just don't think that some of those um, interests were met in some of the more classic stuff because it's just very different approaches and everything.
Yeah.
Um, whereas I'm again might appreciate it. It's just very much like I wish it was more. I mean, just not to uh, continue on with the same illustration, but with like Halloween,
Mhm.
I enjoy how they characterize Michael Myers now. They have now retroactively realized, oh, this is a scary monster of a man. He's a tank that can't be stopped, and that's the scariest thing about him.
Yeah.
When you watch the first film, you don't get that from this guy.
No, you do
He's
not. You
five
get a
foot.
held tilty.
Yeah, he's 5'10". He's not characterized as this brutish evil man,
Mhm.
and so it's just one of those things where it's just like that is Bela Lugosi's Dracula versus um, I mean, even the likes of the Dracula from the 2005 Van Helsing movie,
Oh,
that's at
Richard Roxburgh.
that's at least a much better and more fiery
Yes.
portrayal. I like that.
We love Van Helsing.
Yeah, it's a
We
really,
love
really
it
good
so
movie.
much.
Very good non X-Men Hugh Jackman movie.
Yes. And just in general, like that was one of the best movies of the 2000s in my opinion.
It really could have been. I mean, it kind of used a lot in one movie, but it really could have been the start of the next classic
Mhm.
horror boom.
They have tried so many times to do
The problem is
Universal
they try and
monsters.
modernize it. I
Yes.
really think that's the biggest thing.
Take to the bridge.
I think some of these characters are just so contextualized you can't do it except in its original
I agree.
form. Like when they did Dracula, not Dracula 2000. What was
No. Oh my gosh. Okay, we got to
different
get
movie?
to the list at some point.
Different movie, but it was the same era of like I Frankenstein, where it's just like
Yeah.
what is
Okay,
it
yeah.
just doesn't work.
Luke Evans playing
Oh my
Dracula was pretty
gosh.
good.
I just yeah, that's the movie I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Um, I just completely remembered Underworld.
Yeah.
That
Ye
was the first. I think that was. I made the comparison to Van Helsing, but I
Yeah.
think that was when I was just like,
Kate Blanchett.
oh, these are
Or not. Kate Blanchett.
no,
Kate Beckinsale.
yes.
Kate's okay,
Oh my
get off my
gosh,
butt.
I'm very different Kates there.
Okay.
um, yeah, and those are not scary movies
Not in the slightest.
whatsoever.
They have Michael Sheen being a werewolf. Great.
My favorite Michael Sheen.
Yeah. Not
um,
Aziraphale?
no,
Wow.
yeah, no, I like him as the scraggly boy.
He is a good scraggly
Um,
boy, and he
So
dies.
anyway, yeah, I like that portrayal. That's the
Mhm.
way you modernize it is you don't make them scary.
Yeah.
Like they did that very well, I
They
think.
it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm sad that it tapered off there, but you at least got two really good
Yeah.
movies, I think.
Um, let's talk about some of the actors that have played Dracula.
Yeah, take it away.
So obviously Max Schreck being the first, um, on film.
Really?
On film, yes.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that because
Yeah,
Nosferatu.
1922. He was one of the best, in my opinion. You also had Bela Lugosi,
I
obviously.
I like the original Nosferatu for the physical
Yes,
performance. It's the
absolutely.
same reason I appreciate a lot of Doug Jones characters where he does nothing but physically act.
Mhm.
Because that's something so unique and significant. It's a very big thing we don't realize is a big thing in acting is the physical side of that. You can read with all the emotion in your heart, but sometimes it's just how you don't say anything and it's what
Hmm.
you do. And so, yes, I can appreciate Nosferatu for that sake. Both
Yes.
versions, I think,
Which is, of course,
because
a
the second
silent
one
movie.
talks too much.
Okay. Okay. Klaus Kinski as Nosferatu, Dracula. That dude. Okay.
I haven't.
He is not a good person.
Really?
The
I
real
wouldn't
dude
know.
is not a good
Really?
person. No.
Is he one of those like ridiculous actors that gets way too into it and is a butt to everybody else?
Yes, but he is also a sexual assaulter.
Really?
Yes.
Oh
So
gosh.
he is not a cool dude. The fact that
So
he
both
is
the person and the character deserve a steak.
yes, exactly. Not a steak, a steak.
Right.
It
Extra peppercorn.
it gets weird in Nosferatu in Venice because it goes off the rails. But yeah, that's my favorite adaptation, not my favorite Dracula,
That's fair.
if that makes sense.
That's fair.
You also have the likes of Jeff Goldblum in a full motion video game, Goosebumps.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Doesn't count. Back to Bela Lugosi though. I did like him.
Bela Lugosi's
when I
great.
went back and watched some snippet, which by the way, all of his movies are apparently on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
I discovered that. I didn't have
he's a
time to watch all
fantastic
of
actor.
those, but in watching clips, I really liked. Again, it was that very theatrical kind of portrayal where it's
Because he was a
basically
theater actor.
right, and that's what lends itself so well, I think, to that kind of character. So I like he definitely paved the way for the likes of Christopher Lee to add on to that sort of atmosphere and character and everything. So
And Christopher Lee, of course, who is one of the best actors of a
he's
generation.
who I think of.
Yeah.
He just I try to compare and everything, but he's still just who I see in my head when I think of Dracula.
And I'm not naming every single actor who played Dracula because that is well over 100. Thank you very
What
much.
about the Chad Bro from Blade Trinity?
Yes, the Chad Bro from Blade
The best
Trinity.
version of Dracula.
He was
to
also
date.
in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Dracula.
Yes.
Nice.
How are you gonna have a movie or a show about vampires and you're not gonna have Dracula?
I don't know. They had an episode about a dummy, like a doll. I
Yeah.
remember that. That's literally the only Buffy the Vampire episode I've seen.
I need to sit you down and make you watch Buffy.
Please don't.
Too bad, it's happening.
Josh Whedon wasn't cool until Avengers. I'm sorry.
We're getting off track.
As we tend to do.
He has also been played by Gary Oldman, who absolutely
Got boobies on my
the
head.
boobies on his head.
I'm sorry. Ever since watching Transylvania, I can't
Yeah.
not compare those two now.
Yeah, he's also played by Mel Brooks.
Wasn't Keanu Reeves in that movie
Yes.
with
Yes, he was.
Gary Oldman?
Doing a very bad accent.
Whoa,
That's
you've
basically
got boobies on your head. Or
Yes,
something
that is
like-
almost exactly the accent that he did.
Oh,
because
gosh,
he is
I would watch
fresh
it
off
for
of Bill and
Keanu.
Ted.
I love Keanu.
Let's watch it.
I'd watch it for Keanu.
We need to watch it because that is a
If this vampire
fantastic
goes
movie.
over 55 miles an hour, he explodes.
I love you so much right now. He has also been played by Adam Sandler
Blah blah blah.
in the Hotel Transylvania movies.
I think he does fine.
He does great.
Only the first two. Wasn't it the third one that replaced him? Or there was
I
one.
don't
He
think
got replaced
so.
at some point.
Someday, I don't know.
I thought I'd heard that.
That
He
movie's
did fine.
Yeah, I really liked the first movie. I was mad about the second movie. It's not like the Kung Fu Panda trilogy where all three
they
of
just
them
progressively get
just
better.
so good.
I love those movies.
They're so good.
Yeah, I thought he
It's
did
meh.
fine. I mean, as far as Adam Sandler status goes, he did fine.
And then in the Castlevania games, you have Count Alucard at one point.
Yeah.
Who I think is a Belmont. I don't know.
Mhm.
But Dracula is the main villain of the first few Castlevania games, as well as I think in the anime, which I really need to watch. I love Castlevania.
If you haven't played any of the Castlevania games, it's fine. There's a really easy
They're
way
so
to catch up
good.
on them. Go look
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
up Ninja Sex Party and listen to their song about Castlevania.
It's not Ninja Sex Party,
Is
it's
it?
Starbomb.
It's Starbomb. Oh, that's right, because
Starbomb.
Aaron's in it. Yes, Starbomb, Castlevania,
Crashervania.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's one
I
of
love
the
it so
goofiest
much.
songs.
It's so
We
great.
listen to it all the time.
There's no reason to be so talented and yet
It
so
was a
comedic.
dark and spooky Halloween night. I will sing the entire song right now, but I don't want to.
No, and we don't have the time.
No, we don't.
Do you have anything else to throw in here as we wrap up? Thank you so much, and everyone on the internet. Thank Boop for this wonderful episode.
Thank you.
Learned something, chatted about some vampires, our favorites, and obviously the floor is open to you guys to let us know who your favorite Dracula, what your favorite vampire movie is. If any of you say Blade, get out.
Why don't you like
I'm
Blade?
just kidding. I do. I like Blade.
Yeah.
I don't like Wesley Snipes, but I like Blade.
One more thing. One more person who's played Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Graham, in a high school production. It's him doing his Bela Lugosi impersonation.
Blah, blah, blah.
Which I told him that he needs to find video of that. So hi, Graham.
Please do, and we'll put it on the internet and immortalize him forever.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the show.
That's the show.
Cool.
I had a lot of fun doing minimal research for this episode because it was kind of last minute.
Showing up because that is what I contributed.
I hope you learned something today.
I did. I enjoyed the real life history of vampirism and also just the worldview of vampirism. We kind of get stuck in our ways of how we view things, thanks to media and everything. So it's nice to see that the myth and legend of life suckers has spanned all across the world in history.
And something that I remembered just now that I was going to mention earlier,
Mhm.
the reason that vampires do not show up on film is because cameras basically run on mirrors.
Oh, old cameras.
Digital cameras.
I would like to see how that plays in.
You can capture Dracula on a digital camera, not a shutter camera.
Yeah. Not anything involving a mirror.
So there you go.
Interesting. So yeah, turn it over to you guys. Let us know, like I said, your favorite Dracula. Let us know if we offended you with our horror film opinions. And yeah,
get over it.
Tell us whether or not Vampire's Kiss is the best.
Please
of the best.
watch. Okay, y'all, you need to watch Vampire's Kiss.
You don't need to.
You need to. If you are a fan of me, if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage.
Well, if they're a fan of you, then they have to. All must do is the Boop requests. Thank you to our patrons for supporting us for this and everything. I mean, the fact that we're coming up to 100 episodes for the main show is quite fantastic and awesome. And we have had some patrons that have been with us for that entire time. I'm looking at you, Rebecca.
Looking at you.
I'm not, but figuratively, I'm looking at you.
Right behind you,
being
Werner
Herzog, get out!
It's Werner Herzog.
Get out!
But what if I become Flula? Would you rather I become Flula?
No, I'd rather nothing. All right, now that the Germans are gone, be on the lookout for our 100th episode coming soon. Oh my god. Yeah, I can't think of anything else because I want to end the Germans and this at this point.
Wow! Wow!
Not all of them, just Werner
Your wife
Herzog.
is German.
Like tenths. A tenth.
My grandmother's maiden name was Kurzendorfer, sir. That is not true.
That's not a real name.
It's 100%.
All right. We'll be back with more spooks, more Star Wars, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out the description for all the important links to all the important stuffs. And yeah.
Sleep sweetly, children.
Sleep with steaks and garlic, I guess.
Sleep with steak.